They say blood is thicker than water. Maybe. But ink is thicker than blood, especially the ink on a contract your own son slides across a table while 30 people watch you bleed out. I didn't see a knife. I didn't see a gun. I saw a Mont Blanc pen, a glossy brochure, and a smile that had cost me $40,000 in orthodontics. They called it a celebration, a milestone, 40 years building an empire from a single used flatbed truck. But as I looked around the room, I realized something that made the expensive steak turn to ash in my mouth. This wasn't a party, it was a wake, and I was the only one who didn't know the corpse was still breathing. Subscribe if you know that loyalty is expensive, but betrayal is free. The air in the private dining room of the Prime Cut smelled like truffle oil and conspiracy. It's a specific smell, heavy, cloying. It sticks to the back of your throat like bad medicine masked with sugar. I sat at the head of the table, my hand resting on the white tablecloth. Egyptian cotton, 400 thread count. I knew the thread count because I'd paid the deposit for this room 3 months ago, $15,000 to reserve the space. Another $20,000 projected for the food and wine. My credit card, my signature. But I hadn't picked the menu. I looked down at the plate in front of me. Sea bass. I hate sea bass. I'm a steak man. Ribeye, bone-in, medium rare. I've ordered the same cut of meat for 40 years. Everyone at this table knew that, especially the man sitting to my right. Jason, my son, my vice president of operations. He was wearing a Navy bespoke suit, Italian wool. I knew the tailor. I'd sent him there for his 35th birthday. The suit cost $3,000. The watch on his wrist was a Rolex Submariner, a bonus I'd given him last Christmas for not tanking the Q4 logistics targets. He was drinking a Pinot Noir that retailed for $80 a bottle. He looked good, polished, like a new hood ornament on a car with a rusted engine. "Great turnout, Dad," Jason said. He didn't look at me. He was scanning the room, his eyes darting between the board members and the investors. "Really great." "I didn't invite half these people," I said. My voice was low, gravel rolling in a cement mixer. Jason laughed, a short, sharp sound. "It's a surprise. The committee handled the guest list." I wasn't aware we had a committee. "We wanted to take the load off you," he said. He took a sip of wine. "You've been looking tired lately." I wasn't tired. I was 68. I ran 5 miles every morning at 5 a.m. I was at my desk by 6:30. I could tell you the fuel efficiency of every rig in our fleet down to the decimal point. I could navigate the chaotic customs regulations of 3 continents while sleeping. I wasn't tired. I was efficient. But tired is the word wolves use when they circle the old stag. I looked around the table. 12 board members, 3 major investors. Helen, my CFO, sat 3 seats down on the left. She wasn't eating. Her hands were clasped tight in her lap. Her knuckles were white. Helen and I had started this company in a garage with a leaky roof and a shared dial-up connection. She knew where every skeleton was buried because she'd helped dig the holes. If Helen wasn't eating, the food was poisoned. She caught my eye. Just a flicker. A microscopic shake of her head. Hold fast. That was the signal. We'd used it for decades, in negotiations with unions, in buyouts, in hostile meetings with auditors. Hold fast. Don't react. Wait for the other guy to blink. My stomach tightened. The truffle oil smell seemed to get stronger. Jason stood up. He picked up a spoon and tapped it against his wine glass. Ting, ting, ting. The room went silent, and the heavy oak doors at the back closed, sealing us in. The air conditioning hummed, a low drone that sounded like a countdown. "If I could have everyone's attention," Jason said. He projected his voice, the confident baritone of a man who has never had to shout over a diesel engine to be heard. "I want to propose a toast." Chairs scraped against the hardwood floor. 30 people stood up, glasses raised. The light from the crystal chandelier caught the wine, turning it blood red. "To my father," Jason began. He placed a hand on my shoulder. It felt heavy, like a yoke. "Richard, the founder, the visionary, the man who started it all with 1 truck and a map." Polite applause, scattered, dutiful. 40 years, Jason continued. 40 years of grinding gears, missed holidays, and late nights. 40 years of building the backbone of this industry. He paused for effect. He was good at this. I'd paid for public speaking coaches since he was 12. But, Jason said, his tone shifting, dropping an octave, becoming somber. The industry is changing. We all see it. Artificial intelligence, autonomous fleets, drone delivery logistics. It's fast. It's complex. It's a young man's game. My hand tightened on my glass. The stem was thin, fragile. I could snap it with a twitch of my thumb. I didn't. I held fast. Dad, Jason looked down at me. You've given everything to this company. You've sacrificed your health, your time, your golden years. And we think, the board and I think, it's time we gave something back. He gestured to the waiter standing in the shadows. The waiter stepped forward. He wasn't carrying a cake. He wasn't carrying a plaque. He was holding a stack of glossy folders. He moved around the table, placing a folder in front of every guest. He placed the thickest one in front of me. I looked down. The cover was a high-resolution photo of a palm tree silhouetted against a purple sunset. The text was embossed in gold foil, Sunset Villa, Premier Assisted Living and Resort Community, Sarasota, Florida. The room was dead silent. I could hear the ice melting in the water pitcher on the sidebar. We've taken care of everything, Jason said, his voice swelling with performative generosity. A private villa, full medical staff on site, golf course access. It's fully paid for, Dad, a one-way ticket to paradise. You leave Monday. Monday. This was Friday night. Monday? I asked. My voice didn't shake. It was flat. A deadline. The orientation starts Tuesday, Jason said, smiling. We didn't want you to worry about packing. We've hired a moving service to handle the house. You just need to get on the plane. Handle the house. My house. The one I'd built with my own hands 30 years ago. The one with the oak library I'd restored, plank by plank. The one where my wife, Eleanor, had died in the master bedroom, holding my hand. He was evicting me. He wasn't just firing me. He was erasing me. And, Jason added, to make sure you can truly relax, truly let go. We've prepared the transition documents tonight. A ceremonial signing to mark the passing of the torch. Another waiter appeared. This one held a leather binder. He opened it on the table in front of me. The document was titled, Voluntary Resignation and Equity Transfer Agreement. I looked at the text. It was standard legal boilerplate, but the numbers jumped out at me like neon signs in a dark alley. Immediate resignation as CEO. Transfer of voting rights to Jason Miller. Exchange of equity for a fixed annuity. Annuity. That's a fancy word for an allowance, a weekly stipend, like I was a teenager mowing lawns. I looked up. Jason was beaming. The investors were nodding, looking relieved. They thought they were witnessing a graceful exit, a passing of the guard. They didn't know they were watching a mugging. I looked at the brochure again. Sunset Villa. I flipped it open. On page 3, there was a sample schedule. 8 a.m., group stretching. 10 a.m., memory care orientation. 12 p.m., soft food lunch. 2 p.m., nap time. Memory care. He was painting me as senile. That was the angle. If I refused to sign, he'd use this. Poor Richard. He's slipping. We had to intervene. It's for his own good. I looked at the investors. Mark Johnson from Capital One. Sarah Lee from the pension fund. They were looking at me with pity. Pity is worse than hate. Pity means they've already written you off. They were seeing a confused old man who needed to be guided to the pasture. I felt a cold rage start in my gut. It wasn't the hot, blinding anger of youth. This was different. This was the cold, hard freeze of deep winter. It sharpened my vision. It slowed my heart rate. I looked at Jason. He was 38 years old. He'd never changed a tire in his life. He'd never negotiated a fuel contract at 3 a.m. in a truck stop diner. He'd never looked a union boss in the eye and told him to go to hell. He thought this was over. He thought the brochure and the public pressure would crush me. He thought I would sign just to avoid a scene. He had no idea who he was sitting next to. I reached for my wine glass. I took a sip. I set it down carefully, lining the base up with the edge of the placemat. Precision. Florida, I said. Jason nodded, eager. The weather is perfect this time of year, Dad. No more ice, no more snow. And the house? I asked. Market's hot, Jason said. Too fast. He'd already looked into it. We can list it next week. Liquidate the asset. Put the money into your care fund. My care fund. He was talking about my life's work like it was a pile of scrap metal to be weighed and sold. And the company? I asked. I picked up the pen. It was a Mont Blanc, heavy, black resin with platinum trim. I'd given Jason this pen for his graduation, $800. He was using my gift to sign my death warrant. I've got it, Dad, Jason said. He put his hand on his chest. I'm ready. You trained me. I did, I said. I did train you. I looked at the document again. The signature line was highlighted with a yellow sticky tab. Sign here. I looked at Helen. She was staring at her phone, typing furiously under the table. Then she stopped. She placed the phone face down. She looked at me and tapped her ring finger against the table twice. 2 taps. That meant check the perimeter. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just a takeover. This was too fast, too urgent. Why tonight? Why the ambush? Why ship me to Florida on Monday? If Jason just wanted the CEO chair, he could have waited. I was 68. I wasn't going to live forever. Why the rush? There was a variable I was missing. I put the cap back on the pen. The click was loud in the silent room. It sounds... I paused. I let the word hang there. I looked at the brochure, then at the investors, then at Jason. I put on a tired smile, the smile of a man who is beaten. It sounds restful. Jason let out a breath he'd been holding. His shoulders dropped. It is, Dad. It's what you deserve. I just need a moment, I said, to process. You know how I am with details. Of course, Jason said. He was magnanimous now. The benevolent king. Take your time. We haven't even had dessert. I'm going to step out for some air, I said. Just for a minute. Then we'll sign. Sure, Jason said. He gestured to the door. Do you need help? I can walk, Jason, I said. I put a little frailty into my voice, a little wobble. I'm not an invalid yet. Right, sorry. I pushed my chair back. It scraped against the floor. I stood up slowly, using the table for support. I saw the investors exchange glances. See? He's struggling. It's the right time. I walked to the door. My pace was slow, shuffling. As soon as the heavy oak door clicked shut behind me, the shuffle vanished. I straightened my spine. I checked my watch. 7:42 p.m. I walked down the hallway toward the restrooms, but I didn't go in. I bypassed them and ducked into the coat check alcove. It was empty. The attendant was on a smoke break. I pulled out my phone. It was an older model, an iPhone 11. Jason always made fun of it. Get a new one, Dad. That thing is a brick. But this brick had root access to the company servers. I'd written the original security protocols myself in 1998, and I'd updated them every year since. Jason knew about the user interface. He knew about the dashboards. He didn't know about the back end. I opened the admin app. My thumb hovered over the login. Access denied. I froze. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Access denied. Jason had locked me out. He must have had IT do it this afternoon while I was getting dressed for dinner. Smart boy, I whispered. You actually did your homework. But he hadn't done enough. I navigated to a sub-menu. The legacy system. The ghost protocol. It was a backdoor I'd installed 10 years ago after a ransomware scare. It bypassed the main authentication server and connected directly to the hard drives via a secure tunnel. I watched the loading wheel spin. 1 second, 2 seconds, connected. I was in. I scrolled through the logs. I didn't care about the financials right now. I cared about communications. I went straight to Jason's email exchange server. I searched for urgent and confidential. The results populated the screen. Hundreds of emails. But the most recent ones were interesting. Subject: Project Icarus. Closing timeline. From Jason Miller to Vanguard Logistics Group. Vanguard. My blood ran cold. Vanguard was our biggest competitor. They were corporate raiders. They didn't run logistics companies. They bought them, stripped the assets, sold the fleet, and fired the drivers. There were vultures. I opened the email. Date: today, 4 p.m. Body: the old man is out tonight. Papers will be signed by 9 p.m. We can announce the acquisition Monday morning. The Florida facility is ready to receive him. He won't be in the way. Acquisition. He wasn't running the company. He was selling it. He was selling 40 years of my life to a chop shop. I scrolled down. There was an attachment. Preliminary asset liquidation schedule. I opened it. Item 1. Fleet sale. 500 trucks. Item 2. Real estate holdings. Warehouses. Item 3. Pension fund dissolution. Pension fund dissolution. My breath hitched. We had 300 drivers, men and workwomen who had driven through blizzards, hurricanes, and pandemics to keep this company moving. I had promised them a pension, a real one, defined benefit. Jason was going to raid the pension fund to pad the sale price. He was going to steal their retirement to fund his golden parachute. The Sunset Villa brochure wasn't just for me. It was a distraction. While I was rotting in Florida, he would be dismantling the company and walking away with... I checked the sale price in the email. Purchase price: $120 million. Jason's payout: $15 million. He was selling a company worth $200 million for $120 million just to get a quick cash out. He was taking a discount to get it done fast. Before I noticed. $15 million. That was the price of his father. That was the price of his soul. I put the phone back in my pocket. My hands were steady now. The coldness in my gut had spread to my limbs. I felt like a machine. I walked back toward the dining room. I paused at the door. I could hear laughter inside. Jason was holding court. He probably thought I was in the bathroom crying, or calling a lawyer who wouldn't answer on a Friday night. I adjusted my tie. It was a Windsor knot, perfect symmetry. I opened the door. The laughter died down as I entered. Jason looked up, a glass of champagne in his hand. "Everything okay, Dad?" he asked. "You were gone a while." "Just old pipes, Jason," I said. "Takes a while to get the system flushing." I walked back to the table. I didn't sit down. I stood behind my chair. I looked at the brochure again. Sunset Villa. "You know," I said, addressing the room, "I was just thinking about the first truck I bought. A 1984 Mack Superliner. It had a cracked windshield and the transmission slipped in third gear. Cost me $8,000, all the money I had." Jason sighed, loudly. He rolled his eyes at the investors. "Here we go, the old war stories." "Dad," Jason said, "the food is getting cold. Let's sign the papers and then we can reminisce." "In a minute," I said. "I bought that truck because I had a contract to move steel beams from Pittsburgh to Chicago. It was a suicide run, middle of winter, ice on the roads, but I needed the money." I looked directly at Mark Johnson, the investor from Capital One. "I drove 20 hours straight," I said. "No sleep, coffee and determination. I made the delivery. I got paid, and I used that money to buy the second truck." "That's inspiring, Richard," Mark said, checking his watch. "Really? But we have schedules." "The point," I said, my voice hardening, "is that I built this. Me. Not with a loan from Daddy, not with a shortcut, with sweat, and diesel, and honor." I picked up the brochure and held it up. "And this," I said, shaking the glossy paper. "This is a very nice offer. Florida, golf, soft food." "It's the best facility in the state," Jason said. "Top tier." "I'm sure it is," I said. "But there's a problem." "What problem?" Jason asked, his smile tight. "I don't play golf," I said, "and I have all my own teeth." I tossed the brochure onto the center of the table. It landed in the butter dish. "Sit down, Dad," Jason snapped. The veneer was cracking. "You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" I asked. I pulled out my chair and sat down. But I didn't reach for the pen. I reached for the bread basket. I took a roll. I tore it in half. "Jason," I said, buttering the bread. "Who is Peter Vance?" Jason froze. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. The room went very quiet. Peter Vance was the CEO of Vanguard Logistics, the Vulture. I don't know what you're talking about, Jason stammered. Competitor, I know the name. Funny, I said, because you have an email from him time-stamped 4 hours ago. Subject line, Project Icarus. The investor stiffened. Mark Johnson sat up straighter. Dad, you're confused, Jason said, his voice rising. You're having an episode, see? This is why you need the facility. Paranoia is a symptom of dementia? I finished for him. Is that the word you're looking for? I took a bite of the bread. It was stale. For $15,000, the bread should have been fresh. I'm not paranoid, Jason, I said, chewing slowly. I'm literate, and I have admin access. I revoked your access, Jason shouted. He clapped a hand over his mouth. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavy, heavier than the truffle oil. Ah, I said, so you admit it. Jason looked around the table. He saw the investors looking at him differently now, not as a grieving son, but as a conspirator who had just been caught. It's standard procedure, Jason argued, desperate. During a transition of power, security protocols require. There's no transition, I said. Not yet. I looked at Helen. She had her phone out again. She gave me a nod. Helen, I said, would you mind projecting the quarterly financials? The real ones, not the ones Jason sent to the board. Jason lunged for the remote control on the table, but I was faster. I slapped my hand down on it. My hand was calloused. His was manicured. No contest. I slid the remote to Helen. Helen, if you please. The big screen at the end of the room flickered to life. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was the email chain, the one I'd just read. Purchase price, $120 million. Jason's payout, $15 million. Pension fund, status, to be liquidated. A gasp went around the room. Not from the investors. They knew about the sale. They were in on it. The gasp came from the 2 junior VPs sitting at the end of the table. They didn't know their pensions were on the menu. You're selling us, one of them asked. To Vanguard. It's a merger, Jason yelled. A strategic partnership. It saves the company. It saves nothing, I said. It strips the company. Vanguard doesn't keep fleets. They sell them. You're selling 500 trucks and 300 jobs so you can buy a beach house. I stood up again. This time I didn't use the table for support. You tried to put me in a home, I said, my voice low and dangerous. You tried to declare me incompetent. You tried to steal the company I built while I was sitting right in front of you. The deal is done, Jason screamed. He was standing now, his face red. The board approved it. The investors approved it. You have no voting power. You're the founder, but you're a figurehead. I have the proxy votes. He was right, technically. 6 months ago, I had signed a temporary proxy over to him while I was in the hospital for a hip replacement. I hadn't revoked it yet. He's right, Richard, Mark Johnson said, his voice cold. Jason holds the voting block. The sale is approved. This is unfortunate theatrics, but the deal stands. Jason smiled. A jagged, ugly thing. Sit down, old man. It's over. You can go to Florida, or you can go to hell, but you're leaving this company tonight. I looked at Jason. I looked at the investors. I looked at the Sunset Villa brochure in the butter. They thought they had me. They thought counting votes was the only math that mattered. They forgot about the one variable that trumps everything in the logistics business. Ownership, not of the stock, but of the road. Helen, I said, page 4 of the incorporation documents, the 1985 addendum. Jason frowned. What? The IP, Helen said. Her voice was clear, sharp as cut glass. The routing software, the Atlas algorithm, the proprietary code that runs the entire fleet logistics system. It belongs to the company, Jason scoffed. Actually, I said, it doesn't. I walked over to the window. I looked out at the parking lot. I could see my car, a 1968 Mustang. Restored it myself. When I wrote that code, I said, turning back to the room, I didn't incorporate it into the LLC. I licensed it to the company, a revocable license, for $1 a year. I pulled a folded piece of paper from my inside jacket pocket. It wasn't a glossy brochure. It was a single sheet of cheap printer paper. "This," I said, "is a notice of license revocation. Effective immediately." I dropped the paper on the table. "Without Atlas," I said, "the trucks don't move. The dispatch system goes dark. The tracking stops. The company becomes a parking lot full of confused drivers." I looked at Mark Johnson. "Tell me, Mark, how much is a logistics company worth if it can't move any goods?" Mark went pale. He pulled out his phone. He was doing math. Fast math. "Zero," Mark whispered. "Zero," I repeated. I looked at Jason. His arrogance was gone. He looked like a child who had just dropped his ice cream in the dirt. You can't," Jason stammered. "That's sabotage." "No," I said. "That's leverage." I picked up the Mont Blanc pen. I held it up to the light. "You wanted a signature," I said. "You wanted me to sign something tonight." I uncapped the pen. "I'm not signing your resignation," I said. "I'm signing your termination." "You can't fire me," Jason yelled. "I'm the CEO." "Not without a company to run," I said. I looked at the investors. "Here is the new deal," I said. "Option A. Jason stays. I pull the license. The company value drops to zero. You all lose your investment. Vanguard walks away." I paused. "Option B. Jason is terminated for cause, corporate malfeasance and fraud. The sale to Vanguard is canceled. I return as interim CEO. The license stays. The trucks keep moving." I leaned forward. "Choose." The silence in the room was different now. It wasn't the silence of a funeral. It was the silence of a courtroom right before the gavel drops. Mark Johnson didn't hesitate. He was a money man. He didn't care about loyalty. He cared about yield. He looked at Jason. "Pack your things, Jason," Mark said. Jason looked as if he'd been shot. "Mark? Sarah? You can't be serious." "You lied to us," Sarah said. "You said the IP was secure. You said the transition was handled." "He's bluffing," Jason pointed at me. "He wouldn't destroy his own legacy." "Try me," I said. I held his gaze. I let him see the coldness. I let him see the 40 years of hard roads and tough decisions. I let him see the father who had changed his diapers, paid for his college, bought his suits, and was now ready to burn it all down to the ground rather than let a thief walk away with it. Jason saw it. He flinched. He knew. "Fine," Jason spat. "Fine. You want the wreck? Take it. It's a dinosaur anyway. Just like you." He grabbed his phone off the table. "I'm leaving," he said. "One more thing," I said. Jason stopped at the door. "The brochure," I said. I picked the buttery brochure out of the dish. I walked over to him. I shoved it into the pocket of his $3,000 suit. "You might want to keep this," I said. "It's the only rent you can afford now." "I'm cutting you off, Jason. No severance, no stock, no trust fund." "You can't," he whispered. "I'm your son." "You were my son when you walked in here," I said. "Now, you're just a former employee who tried to embezzle from the pension fund." "I'll sue you," he hissed. "With what money?" I asked. "I just froze your corporate card, and your personal accounts are linked to the family trust, which I control." I checked my watch. 8:15 p.m. "You have 20 minutes to clear your desk before security escorts you out of the building. I'd hurry. Traffic is bad on Fridays." Jason stared at me. His mouth opened and closed. No words came out. He turned and ran. He didn't walk. He ran. I watched him go. I turned back to the room. The investors were looking at me, expectant, nervous. I walked back to the head of the table. I sat down. I picked up my wine glass. I took a sip. "So," I said, "who wants dessert?" The silence in the restaurant parking lot was heavier than the silence inside. Inside it was the shock of a failed coup. Outside it was just the night. Cold, indifferent, the kind of dark that swallows sound. I stood by my car, a 1968 Mustang Fastback, Highland green. I'd spent 3 years restoring it, sourcing parts from salvage yards in 3 states. It wasn't just a car. It was a machine you had to talk to. You had to listen to it. It had a soul made of steel and combustion. Jason drove a Tesla, a computer on wheels, silent, soulless. He liked it because it drove itself. That summed up my son perfectly. He wanted the destination without the driving. Helen walked up beside me. She was wrapping a wool scarf around her neck. She looked small in the moonlight, but I knew she was made of titanium wire. "The board is in chaos," she said. Her voice was calm. "Mark is trying to call his legal team. Sarah is hyperventilating near the coat check. They're terrified you're going to sue them for conspiracy." "Let them sweat," I said. I opened the car door. The hinge gave a solid, mechanical thunk. "Sweat is good for the circulation." "Where are you going?" she asked. "To the office," I said. "The Citadel." "It's Friday night, Richard. It's almost 9. "Jason has had access to the building for 10 years, I said. "He's been planning this sale for 6 months. You think the only thing he stole was the voting proxy? I need to see the physical files. I need to see what else he's buried." Helen nodded. She walked around to the passenger side. "Unlock the door. I'm coming with you. You should go home. Rest. I've been the CFO of this company for 35 years, she said, pulling the handle. "If the ship is taking on water, I'm manning the pumps. Unlock the damn door, Richard." I smiled. A real smile this time. Not the shark smile I'd worn at the dinner table. "Yes, ma'am." The engine roared to life. A deep, guttural growl that vibrated through the bucket seats. No electric hum here. This was raw power. We drove in silence. The city lights blurred past. I counted the traffic lights. 4 red, 6 green. I counted the minutes. 12 minutes from the steakhouse to the industrial park. The logistics center, the Citadel, rose up out of the darkness like a fortress. 500,000 square feet of warehouse space, 30 loading docks, a fleet yard that stretched for acres. I pulled up to the main gate. The guard shack was illuminated by a single yellow sodium light. Jerry was on duty, 62 years old, retired Marine. He'd been with me for 20 years. He stepped out, clipboard in hand. He squinted at the headlights, then saw the Mustang. He straightened up. "Mr. Miller," Jerry said. He looked confused. I thought, well, the memo said. "What did the memo say, Jerry?" I asked. I rolled down the window. The air smelled of diesel and rain. "Email from VP Jason," Jerry said, looking down at his clipboard. "Said you were retiring effective tonight. Said your access badge was to be collected if you showed up. Is that right?" I said. My voice was level. "And did Jason mention who signs your paycheck, Jerry?" Jerry hesitated. He looked at me. He looked at Helen. Then he looked at the gate controls. "He said you were unfit, sir. Medical leave." "Do I look unfit, Jerry?" Jerry looked me in the eye. He saw the anger. He saw the focus. "No, sir," Jerry said. "You look like you're about to fire someone." "I already did," I said. "Open the gate, Jerry. And if Jason Miller shows up, his access is revoked. If he tries to enter, call the police. That's a direct order from the CEO." Jerry didn't blink. He nodded once. "Understood, sir." The gate arm lifted. We rolled into the lot. It was mostly empty, just the night shift crew's cars scattered near the warehouse entrance. But the executive lot was deserted, except for one spot. Jason's spot. It was empty, but there was a box sitting in the middle of it. A cardboard banker's box. I parked the Mustang in my spot, the one painted Reserved R. Miller, and got out. I walked over to Jason's spot. The box was wet from the damp pavement. I kicked it. It was heavy. "What is it?" Helen asked, coming up behind me. "Promotional materials," I said. I leaned down and flipped the lid open. It was full of merchandise, hats, polos, coffee mugs, but they didn't say Miller Logistics. They said Vanguard Miller Global. He had already rebranded. He had already spent company money, my money, printing swag for a merger that hadn't happened yet. I picked up a mug. It was cheap ceramic, made in China. Our company mugs were thermal steel, made in Ohio. "He was so sure," I whispered. "He was so absolute in his arrogance." I dropped the mug back into the box. It shattered. "Let's go inside," I said. We entered through the executive lobby. The lights were dimmed to energy-saving mode. The silence was thick. We took the elevator to the 4th floor. The doors slid open. The hallway was lined with portraits, the history of the company. A photo of me, standing in front of the first truck in 1984. A photo of the groundbreaking for the new warehouse in 1995. I walked past them to the corner office. My office. I swiped my badge. The reader beeped green. Access granted. I pushed the door open. My office was exactly as I'd left it. The mahogany desk, the leather chair, the stack of industry journals on the sidebar. But I didn't stop there. I walked through the connecting door to the adjacent office, the VP suite, Jason's office. I hadn't been in here for months. I trusted him. I let him have his space. Now, I turned on the lights and looked at what my trust had bought. It looked like a tech startup incubator had vomited into a boardroom. The heavy oak desk I'd given him was gone, replaced by a standing desk made of glass and chrome. There was a treadmill underneath it. A treadmill. The man couldn't walk across the parking lot to check a tire, but he walked 5 miles a day while sending emails about synergy. The walls were covered in whiteboards. They were covered in diagrams, buzzwords, paradigm shift, disruptive vertical integration, asset-light model. Asset-light, I read aloud. That means selling the trucks. Richard, Helen said from the doorway. She was holding a stack of papers she'd pulled from the printer tray in the hallway. You need to see this. I walked over. What is it? He didn't just plan to sell the company, she said. He was gutting the operational budget to make the P&L look better for the valuation. She handed me a spreadsheet. Maintenance schedule, Q4 deferrals. I scanned the list. Brake pad replacements, deferred. Tire rotation, deferred. Engine overhauls, units 104 to 150. Cancelled. My hand shook, not from age, from rage. He deferred brake maintenance? I asked. My voice was a whisper. On 80,000-pound vehicles driving through the Rockies in December. He saved $200,000, Helen said. Boosted the quarterly EBITDA by 0.5%. He risked lives, I said. He risked our drivers. He risked families on the highway for 0.5%. I crushed the paper in my hand. I want everything, I said. I want every file, every email, every receipt. Tear this office apart. I walked over to the glass desk. There was a laptop docking station, but the laptop was gone. Smart. He took the machine, but he forgot the backup drive. It was plugged into the USB hub behind the monitor. A small black rectangle, a 4-terabyte external drive. He probably used it for time machine backups. Most people set it and forget it. I unplugged it. Helen, bring your laptop. We sat at the conference table in my office. Helen booted up her machine. I plugged in the drive. It was encrypted, of course. Password, Helen asked. Try his birthday, I said. Oh, 41285. Helen typed it. Incorrect. Try his daughter's birthday, I said. Oh, 82015. Incorrect. I closed my eyes. I thought about Jason. I thought about his ego, his need to be the smartest man in the room. Try visionary, I said. Helen looked at me. Really? Try it. She typed it. Visionary. Access granted. God, Helen muttered. He really is a caricature. The file structure appeared on the screen. It was a mirror of his laptop. I went straight to the folder labeled Personal. Inside there was a subfolder, Transition Plan. I opened it. There were PDFs, dozens of them. Broker agreement, Sunset Villa, power of attorney, draft, estate liquidation strategy. I clicked on estate liquidation strategy. It was a spreadsheet listing my personal assets. Primary residence. List at $1.2 million. Quick sale. Vintage Mustang. Sell to collector. Estimated $65,000. Cabin at Lake George. Retain for personal use. He was going to sell my house. He was going to sell my car. But he was going to keep the cabin I built with my wife, the cabin where we spent our anniversaries, the cabin where I scattered her ashes off the dock. He was going to keep it as a party house. He wasn't just retiring you, Helen said softly. He was deleting you. Keep looking, I said. Find the money. She clicked on a folder labeled Consultants. The list was long. Brand Identity Consultant, $45,000. Change Management Guru, $60,000. Corporate Culture, Architect, $85,000. Who are these people? I asked. I've never met them. Look at the addresses, Helen said. She pointed to the screen. I looked. Brand Identity Consultant, 1422 Oak Street, Apartment 4B. Change Management Guru, 1422 Oak Street, Apartment 4B. That's the same address, I said. It's his sister-in-law's address, Helen said. His wife's sister, the artist. He was funneling money. He was paying his wife's family six-figure sums for consulting that produced nothing but new logos and morale surveys. Embezzlement, I said. Pure and simple. It gets worse, Helen said. She opened another file. Projected headcount reduction. This was the list I'd feared. The firing list. Vanguard wanted the company lean. Jason had promised them a skeleton crew. I read the names. Mike Kowalski, Fleet Manager. 25 years service. Sarah Jenkins, Dispatch. 18 years service. Jerry Reynolds, Security. 20 years service. Jerry. The man at the gate. The man who just let us in. Jason was going to fire him 3 days before Christmas. Reason for termination. I read the column next to Jerry's name. Redundant role. Replace with automated kiosk. An automated kiosk. I felt the coldness in my chest turn into something sharp, something heavy. He treated people like code, I said, like lines in a script that could be deleted to save space. I stood up. I walked over to the window. I looked down at the parking lot. The Mustang was sitting there under the light. Solid. Real. I need coffee, I said. Real coffee. Not that pod garbage Jason installed. I walked out to the break room. The break room had been modernized. The old bun coffee maker, the one that could brew tar thick enough to pave a road, was gone. Replaced by a gleaming Italian espresso machine that looked like a spaceship. La Marzocco. Price tag, $4,500. I touched the side. It was cold. Dust on the cup warmer. $4,000 for coffee nobody knows how to use, I muttered. I opened the cabinets. I found a jar of instant crystals in the back, behind a stack of organic herbal teas. I boiled water in the microwave. I stood there watching the turntable spin. 10 seconds. 9 seconds. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out. Unknown number. I answered. Miller. You think you're clever, don't you? It was Jason. His voice was slurred. He was drinking. I think I'm thorough, I said. There's a difference. You can't lock me out, Jason said. I built the new architecture. I know the back doors. I found the drive, Jason, I said. The backup drive behind the monitor. The one you forgot in your rush to run away. Silence on the line. Heavy. Panicked. You can't open that. It's encrypted. Visionary, I said, with a capital Vi. I heard a glass smash in the background. That's illegal, Jason screamed. That's my personal property. It was plugged into a company computer in a company office containing company data, I said. It's evidence. And Jason? I saw the maintenance deferrals. It was a strategic realignment of cash flow. It was criminal negligence, I roared. The sudden volume made the break room echo. You deferred brake pads on the mountain fleet. If a single driver had gone off the road, if a single truck had failed. Nothing happened, Jason yelled back. It's fine. You're just obsessed with the details. You don't see the big picture. The big picture is made of details, you arrogant son of a bitch. I took a breath. I lowered my voice. I saw the list, Jason. Jerry, you were going to fire Jerry for a kiosk. He's overhead. He sits in a shack and reads magazines. He's loyalty, I said. He stopped a theft ring in 2008. He worked double shifts during the hurricane. You can't put a line item on that. You're living in the past, Jason spat. The company is dead. You just don't know it yet. Vanguard was the lifeboat. Without them, you'll sink within a year. The margins are too thin. Maybe, I said. Or maybe the margins are thin because my VP of operations is funneling $250,000 a year to his sister-in-law for brand consulting. Silence again. I'm going to ruin you, Jason whispered. I know things. I know about the EPA violations in the 90s. We paid the fines, I said. We remediated the land. It's public record. Try again. I'll tell the press you're senile. I'll leak the medical records. What medical records? I asked. My cholesterol is 180. My blood pressure is 120/80. The only thing wrong with me is a stab wound in my back, and the knife has your fingerprints on it. I'm not done, Jason said. I'm not. I hung up. I stared at the phone. He wasn't done. He was desperate. A desperate man is dangerous. He wouldn't just give up. He would try to burn the house down if he couldn't own it. I walked back to the office. Helen, I said, check the bank accounts, specifically the payroll account. Helen looked up. Her face was pale. I'm already there, she said. He initiated a transfer at 8:45 p.m. while he was in the car leaving the restaurant. How much? $2 million, Helen said, to an offshore account in the Caymans, labeled severance execution. He tried to drain the operating capital, I said. Tried? Helen asked. Did it go through? It's pending, Helen said. Bank batch processing runs at midnight. I looked at the clock on the wall. 10:15 p.m. We have less than 2 hours to stop the transfer, I said. I can't stop it from here, Helen said. I need two-factor authentication from the initiator, or a direct override from the bank president. It's Friday night, I said. The bank is closed. We need the physical token, Helen said. The RSA key fob. Jason has it. No, I said, he doesn't. I remembered the dinner. The signing ceremony. The leather binder. When the waiter brought the papers, he had placed a small velvet pouch on the table next to the pen. I had thought it was a seal or a stamp. The ceremony, I said. He brought the keys to the kingdom to hand over to me symbolically, or to hand to Vanguard. The fob? I think it's in the binder, I said. The leather binder at the restaurant. We left it there, Helen said. On the table. The restaurant closes at 11, I said. I grabbed my keys. Stay here, I told Helen. Monitor the network. If he tries to log in again, shut down the entire grid. Pull the plug on the server if you have to. Richard, she said, be careful. If he realizes he left it. He's coming back for it, I said. I ran for the elevator. I didn't wait for the doors to close smoothly. I hit the button repeatedly. 3 taps. I sprinted to the Mustang. The engine roared. I didn't let it warm up. I threw it into reverse, tires screeching on the asphalt. I hit the gate. Jerry had it open before I even got there. Go get him, boss, Jerry shouted. I merged onto the highway. The traffic was lighter now. I pressed the accelerator. The speedometer climbed. 70, 80, 90. The Mustang vibrated. It was a raw mechanical shaking. The steering wheel fought me. I needed that binder. If that $2 million cleared, we wouldn't make payroll next week. The drivers wouldn't get paid. The fuel cards would bounce. The trucks would stop. And Jason would win. I saw the exit for the steakhouse. I swerved across 2 lanes. I pulled into the parking lot. The Tesla was there. It was parked crookedly, taking up 2 spaces near the entrance. The driver's door was open. Jason was already here. I slammed the Mustang into park and jumped out. I ran toward the front door. The maitre d' was standing there looking flustered. Mr. Miller, he cried. Your son. He's in the dining room. He's shouting. I pushed past him. I burst into the private dining room. The table was uncleared, the dirty plates, the half-empty wine glasses, the wreckage of the party. Jason was there. He was frantically tossing napkins and plates onto the floor. He was tearing the tablecloth. Where is it? He was screaming. Where is it? He saw me. He froze. His eyes were wild. His tie was undone. He looked like a man unraveling. You took it, he accused. You took the fob. I didn't, I said. I stepped into the room. but I know what it does. Give it to me. He lunged toward me. I sidestepped. He stumbled, crashing into a stack of chairs. He wasn't a fighter, he was a soft man in a hard world. It's not here, Jason, I said. Think. You didn't leave it on the table. He stopped. He was panting. I had it. In the pouch. You put it in your pocket, I said. When you gave the toast, you patted your pocket. Muscle memory. He slapped his jacket pockets. Nothing. I don't have it. Check the brochure, I said. He looked at me, confused. What? The brochure, I said. The one I shoved in your pocket. The Sunset Villa brochure. He reached into his suit jacket. He pulled out the crumpled, buttery brochure. He shook it. Something fell out. A small black RSA token. It clattered onto the hardwood floor. We both looked at it. The numbers on the small LCD screen were changing. A countdown. 458,992. The payroll transfer, I said. $2 million. You need the code to finalize it. Jason dove for it. I didn't dive. I'm 68, I don't dive. I stepped. I brought the heel of my dress shoe down on the token. Crunch. The plastic shattered. The LCD screen went black. Jason stared at the broken pieces of plastic under my heel. You, he whispered, you just destroyed $2 million. No, I said. I just saved it. Without the code, the transfer fails. The bank security protocol automatically rejects the batch. I ground my heel, twisting it, making sure the electronics were pulverized. It's over, Jason. He looked up at me from the floor. He was on his knees, surrounded by broken plastic and a buttery brochure for a retirement home. I hate you, he said. The words were wet, choked. I've hated you for years. You and your damn trucks. You and your honor. You care more about those drivers than you ever cared about me. That's not true, I said. I loved you enough to give you a job you didn't earn. I loved you enough to cover your mistakes for a decade. I loved you enough to let you think you were running things. I looked down at him. But you're right about one thing. I do care about the drivers, because they show up, they do the work, they don't steal from the people who feed them. I turned away. Get up, I said. The police are on their way. I called them from the car. Corporate espionage, attempted grand larceny, and trespassing. You're sending your own son to jail? I stopped at the door. I didn't look back. I don't have a son, I said. I have a former employee who just cost me a very expensive pair of shoes. I walked out. The night air felt cleaner now. The truffle oil smell was gone. I walked to the Mustang. I sat in the driver's seat. My hands were shaking slightly. The adrenaline dump. I took a deep breath. In, out. I picked up my phone. I dialed Helen. It's done, I said. The token is destroyed. The transfer will fail. Thank God, Helen said. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. I'm coming back to the office. We have to purge the system. And Helen? Yes? Order pizzas for the security team. And for us. Pepperoni. None of that artisanal arugula crap. Copy that, Richard. I started the engine. I looked at the rearview mirror. I saw the blue lights of a police cruiser turning into the lot. I put the car in gear and drove away. I didn't watch the arrest. I didn't need to see it. I knew the outcome. The math was simple. Crime minus leverage equals consequences. I drove back to the Citadel. I had work to do. The Citadel was quiet when I got back, but it wasn't empty. Helen had called in the senior IT director, a kid named Marcus who looked like he hadn't slept since the invention of caffeine. They were in the server room, stripping Jason's access from the root level down. I sat in my office. The real one. Not the glass cage next door. My desk was a slab of reclaimed oak, solid. It had scars from coffee cups and pen scratches from 30 years of contracts. It felt like home. It was 1:00 a.m. I had a pizza box open on the sidebar. Pepperoni, grease stains on the cardboard. It was the best meal I'd had in years. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I knew who it was. The police had taken Jason's phone. This would be the family. I answered. Miller, you bastard. It was Vanessa, Jason's wife, the brand identity consultant who lived at 1422 Oak Street. Good morning to you too, Vanessa, I said. I took a bite of pizza. Cold cheese, salty. He's in a holding cell, she shrieked. They wouldn't let me see him. They said he's being charged with fraud, with theft. Grand larceny, I corrected, and corporate espionage. The charges are quite specific. He was trying to help you, she screamed. He was trying to secure the family legacy. You're just a bitter old dinosaur who can't let go. Family legacy, I repeated. Is that what you call funneling $200,000 of company money into your consulting firm? Silence, sudden and sharp. I saw the ledger, Vanessa, I said. Brand identity, culture architecture, nice names for stealing from my payroll. That was legitimate work, she stammered. Her voice had lost its edge. It was thin now, glassy. I've instructed my lawyers to audit every invoice, I said. If they find a single billable hour that doesn't correspond to a tangible deliverable, and looking at the new logo, which appears to be a blue square, I suspect they will add you to the lawsuit. You wouldn't. I just put my son in jail, Vanessa, I said. Do you think I have any sentimental attachment to my daughter-in-law? I heard her breathing, shallow, panicked. The house, she whispered. The mortgage is in Jason's name, but the payments, they come from the salary I just terminated, I said, and the accounts I just froze. We have children, your grandchildren. I have 2 grandchildren, I said. Max and Sophie. I set up irrevocable education trust for them 5 years ago. Their college is paid for. They won't suffer. I paused. But you? You might want to start looking for a smaller apartment. I hear 1422 Oak Street has vacancies. I hung up. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel bad. I felt precise, like a surgeon cutting out necrotic tissue. It's messy, but the patient dies without it. Helen walked in. She looked exhausted. Her lipstick was faded, and she had a smear of copier toner on her cheek. Marcus says the system is clean, she said. We've locked out the Vanguard remote access. The VPN tunnel is collapsed. We're safe. Good. She sat down in the chair opposite me. She looked at the pizza. Is there any left? 2 slices. She took one. She ate it with the grace of a starving woman. So, she said, wiping her hands on a napkin. What now? We've stopped the bleeding, but we're down a CEO, a VP, and we have a board that's terrified of you. We rebuild, I said. Richard, she said gently, you're 68. You just saved the company. You won. But can you run it? Day to day, the operations, the grind? I looked at my hands. They were steady. But they were old hands. Veins, spots. I can run it, I said, for now, but you're right. I can't be the future. I stood up and walked to the window. The fleet yard was starting to wake up. The early morning shift, drivers arriving, engines idling, the white smoke of diesel exhaust rising in the cold air. I need a general, I said, not a prince, not an heir, a soldier. Who? Mike Kowalski, I said. The fleet manager? Helen asked. He's rough around the edges, Richard. He wears flannel to board meetings. He knows the trucks, I said. He knows the drivers, and Jason was going to fire him. I turned back to her. Call him. Tell him to meet me here at 6 a.m. The meeting, Mike Kowalski walked into my office at 5:55 a.m. He was wearing a Carhartt jacket and work boots. He held a thermos of coffee that looked like it had been run over by a tank. He looked nervous. He'd heard the rumors. Everyone had. Mr. Miller, he said, I heard about Jason. Is it true? It's true, I said. Sit down, Mike. He sat. He looked at the empty VP office through the open door, the glass desk, the treadmill. Am I being let go? Mike asked. He was a direct man. I liked that. Jason had you on a list, I said. Termination for redundancy. Mike's jaw tightened. He looked at his boots. I see. Well, I've got 25 years in. I guess the severance will be okay. I'm not Jason, I said. I slid a file across the desk. That's not a severance package, I said. That's a promotion. Mike opened the folder. He read the title page. Offer of employment, Chief Operating Officer. His eyes went wide. COO, me? Sir, I don't have an MBA. I barely finished community college. I don't need an MBA, I said. I need someone who knows that you don't defer brake maintenance to save a percentage point. I need someone who knows that a driver isn't a line of code. I leaned forward. I'm staying on as CEO interim. 1 year, maybe 2. I'm going to teach you the rest. The finance, the strategy, the board politics. And then? Mike asked. And then, I said, I'm going to retire. For real. And I'm going to hand the keys to someone who earned them, not someone who was born with them. Mike looked at the paper. His hand shook a little. I won't let you down, Richard. I know, I said. Now get out of here. We have a shift change in 20 minutes. Go tell the drivers their pensions are safe. Mike stood up. He looked 10 feet tall. Yes, sir. He walked out. I watched him go. 6 months later, the courtroom was cold. Modern courtrooms always are. Fluorescent lights and acoustic tiles. I sat in the back row. Jason stood at the defense table. He looked smaller. The bespoke suit didn't fit him anymore. He'd lost weight. His hair was thinning. The plea deal had been finalized an hour ago. 3 years in minimum security, 5 years probation, restitution of the embezzled funds, which meant selling the house, the cars, everything. He turned and looked at the gallery. He scanned the faces. He was looking for Vanessa. She wasn't there. She'd filed for divorce 2 weeks after the arrest. His eyes found me. I didn't look away. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just watched. He looked at me with a mix of anger and pleading. He wanted something. Forgiveness? Acknowledgement? A check? I gave him nothing. The bailiff led him away. The door clicked shut. Click. It sounded like a lock, or a period at the end of a sentence. I stood up. I buttoned my coat. I walked out of the courthouse and into the sunlight. It was June. The air was warm. I walked to the parking lot. The Mustang was waiting. I got in. I turned the key. The engine rumbled. I didn't drive to the office. It was Saturday. Mike was running the weekend shift. He had it handled. I drove north, toward the lake. I reached the cabin around noon. It was quiet. The water was glass. I walked down to the dock. I sat on the edge, my legs dangling over the water. I took a deep breath. Pine needles, water, freedom. My phone buzzed. I looked at it. A text from Helen. Q2 numbers are in. Up 12%. Mike is asking if we can approve the new fleet purchase. I typed back, approved. Tell him to get the extended warranty. I put the phone down on the dock. I thought about Jason in his cell. I thought about the Sunset Villa brochure. They say you can't take it with you. That's true, but you sure as hell don't have to hand it over to someone who brings a shovel to your party. I picked up a stone and skipped it across the water. 1, 2, 3, 4 skips. 4 skips. 40 years. I stood up. I wasn't tired anymore. I walked back to the cabin to grill a steak. Ribeye. Bone in, medium rare. Because I could. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, but sometimes you have to carry the bag to the curb. Subscribe for more stories about justice served cold.